Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to Joe's Garage. Today I'm going to give you the top 10 tips for doing an easy and successful oil change in the CA Corvette with the LT2 engine. If you have the E-Ray, if you have the Stingray, the Z51, not the Z06 or soon to be Z01, because that has a slightly different methodology for changing the oil, to my knowledge. But as far as the Stingray goes, here are some 10 easy tips to make your oil change successful and smooth. First thing you're going to want to do is you're going to fire up this bad boy and get it up to temperature. So let's cold start it. Get this thing up. 175 degrees. It may take a few minutes or so, but you want to change the oil while it's really, really warm. That allows it to not only circulate, but also be thin enough to empty out easily. Alright, so we're still getting there. Engine temperature is at 176, but oil temperature is at 149, so we're going to let this get a little warmer. Alright, so we're up to temperature. Now we're going to go ahead and just, might as well check the oil, just see where we're at as far as levels go before we go ahead and change the oil. So we're going to go to the dipstick. Car should be running and idling and at least about 175. We're at 76 degrees, so we should be good. Alright, engine is running. Here's the dipstick. We're going to go ahead and just pull this out. Clean it off. Again, we're at 175-ish degrees. Car is idling while we check the oil. Let's see where we're at. Yeah, we're on about a third of the way down, so we might have consumed a little bit of oil here. I don't know if you can see that right about where the tip of my thumb is. So we're still in the normal operating range, and when we refill this, we're going to refill it to 7.5 quarts of oil, of course using the correct oil. Also, another tip, here's tip number 2. When we do, you're going to want to take this cap off for the oil fill. Leave this off while you're draining the oil. It's going to allow air to go down through and make the oil come out a lot easier. Alright, so here's a less obvious tip. If you're going to be working on your CA garage and you have a hardtop convertible like I do, and you're in a garage, like my garage door is not that high, even though I have a 10-foot ceiling here, when this tonneau is open, if you're going to lift the car up, you're going to screw up either the top of your car or your garage door. So open it, remove your cap, close it, get it ready to get lifted. Do your work with it lifted, bring it down, then open it up. That'll save you some aggravation of ruining your tonneau or your garage door. Next tip, plastic sheeting. Sometimes when the oil comes out, it makes a big splattery mess. This will protect your floor and your jack stands and your quick jack from getting covered with spraying or overspray of oil. And there you have it, just some plastic. And while I have the utmost faith in my quick jacks, I did put jack stands under there just in case. Alright, so here's what you're going to need for this job. You're going to need 7.5 quarts. Now, from the last oil change that I had done, or at least that I did, I had half a quart left. Now, they come in cases of 6, which means you're going to have to do the math. I've got a torque wrench here because we're going to torque down the 15mm oil drain plug to 18 foot-pounds of torque. I've got a Mobil 1. You can also use the PF64, which is the AC Delco filter, or you could use this one, which is the M114A oil filter. I have off my oil cap. You're going to need a regular ratchet and a 15 mil. Trusty old 15 mil to get that off. And that's pretty much it. Now, I do have, and I'm going to experiment with this, which is a plastic funnel-like but also rubberized thing to give you a grip on the oil filter. We're going to try that today and see how that goes. You could also use a red Solo cup or a plastic cup to help keep that drippy drip, but we'll try this and see how this goes. Alright, so about this is a rubberized material which I believe is going to give you a good grip. It screws in here, and then there's a release screw here to help get whatever oil is caught with this thing into your drip drain pan. And if it is difficult to get off that oil filter, I have one of these that sits up in there, regular socket. Turn that thing going, and that's not even English. Turn this thing and it will go. Here's a tip. I'm going to put a microfiber towel that I'm not afraid of getting rid of in the bottom so that when this thing comes out, and it does come out really fast, and it's really hot, it'll not splash up as much. Alright, so underneath the car, you will see here is the drain plug. Here is the oil filter. But we're going to do this first, and then this. Actually, I'm going to put something under this to make it up a little bit higher. Alright, so I've got this underneath this. Let's see how well this goes. I'm trying to figure out where I can put this camera so you can see this decently. Hopefully you can see from there, but if you can't. She goes. No major splashing. Well, it is splashing, but not bad. It is good that I had that plastic there. I don't know why it splashes so much, but it did. Seven and a half quarts, dirty oil coming out. You sit here, but this is supposed to drain out for about, they say 20 minutes. I'll give it 30. Make sure we get all that oil out. Alright, so I just want you to see, I don't know if you can see the drips. That's all splatter. And I have this thing pretty darn close as this is coming out. But now you know why I had that plastic there, so that's not going to end up all over my garage floor. Alright, here's tip number 9, I guess. When you're going to put your filter in, a couple things that you want to do. I've heard people say different things. Me personally, I was always taught fill this up about as high as you can, or at least 3/4 of the way up with the oil that you're using. Take your finger and a little bit of oil and just prime the gasket here with just a little bit to make a really good seal. Don't make this thing too tight. This is rubber here. You don't want to crack and destroy that, and then you have a big leak. But do fill it. The reason being is that when you start the car, that first time or two, you want to make sure there's enough fluid not going into here and other places. It's all everywhere that it should be. So do that first. Alright. Gonna prime the oil filter. Fill that most of the way up, and you'll see it'll start to settle down. I don't know if you could see. It'll settle down as the air comes out. Fill it up a little more. Most of the way. It doesn't have to be all the way up to the top, but you want this thing fairly full of oil. I'd say about there is good. Then take your finger, rub a little bit around the edge there, get it moistened, if you will, with a thin layer of oil, just so you make a good seal, and you're ready to go. Let's talk about the type of oil you need to use. It requires Mobil 1 SuperCar, which is 0W40 viscosity. Manufacturer recommends Mobil 1. The main thing about this is there's many different 0W40 viscosity oils out there, but they want you to use Mobil 1 because Mobil 1 has Dexos or Dexos. I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce it. But there are different Dexoses too, or Dexos. There's Dexos 1, Dexos 2, SuperCar R, or Dexos R. Ideally, you want a Dexos 2. I'm sure if you have Dexos, you can get away with it. I try to find the SuperCar, which has Dexos 2. It's the highest level of Dexos, which is cleaning additives and other things to help with emissions and other issues with your car. It's the one they recommend. Don't screw around and find out. Just use the right one. Alright, tip number 9. Let's talk about the intervals and how often you should change the oil of your C8 Corvette. So if you go online, you'll see there are a ton of opinions, and everyone's got one, about how often you should change your oil. So first oil change, they say should be done by 7,500 miles. If you talk to people who know a lot about cars, they'll tell you should change the oil after the first 500-mile break-in period to get rid of the little metallic debris from the manufacturing process. Other people will say wait till the 1,500 mark to do your very first oil change. Other people say if you drive your car, you should still change oil every 3,000 miles. The manual says do your oil every 7,500 miles or a year, whichever comes first. Here's my opinion. I am not a mechanic in any way, shape, or form, nor am I giving mechanical advice. Here's what I did with my car. I did the 500-mile break-in. Drove the car very gently. I then did an additional gentle break-in to the 1,500 mark. The manual says you should not track a car before 1,500 miles. I figure they kind of know what they're doing. After the 1,500 mile mark, I changed the oil. I then got all the debris, the deposits, changed out the filter, got everything going, put in new oil. So I did it at 1,500, I did it at 2,500, I did it at 7,000. I'm doing it now at 11,500. I'll probably do my next one around 15,500. Ish, maybe 15,000 or so, somewhere around there. Get me to the 22,000 mile mark, and that's when I'm going to do the transmission fluid replacement, transmission flush, get everything done there, as well as another DCT filter. So my plan is this: every 4,000 miles or so, because I do drive in a spirited fashion. If I drove in a very mild, slow fashion, just taking it to the supermarket and back, you could probably get away with 7,500 miles, maybe even more. Some people suggest you can get up to 10 or 12,000 miles because it's an amazing synthetic oil. I personally would never go that far. So I would do, my average is going to be every 4,000 miles. Or now, another thing to talk about is the DCT filter. Now, I bought a new DCT filter. I learned how to do it. It is not a complicated process. There are a bunch of screws to take out. That makes it a real time-consuming but easy project. If done carefully and done correctly. However, I've seen some people online who I very much respect change their DCT filter every time they do an oil change. I'm doing an oil change every 4,000 miles on average, 4,500 miles-ish. I don't plan on changing the DCT then. I do plan on changing the DCT maybe every 7,500 miles. Reason being, these things have a history of being finicky with their DCT filters and their DCT issues. I don't want a new transmission. I don't want GM to buy me a new transmission, so I'm going to do what I can to take care of the transmission. And there is a slight bit of leakage that happens when you remove the DCT filter, but you can replace it, even though they say it's not necessary, through the driver's side rear wheel well. There's a fill plug. If you tilt the car to 13 degrees, that'll be another video. So as far as the frequency of this thing, you can go 7,500 miles. Me personally, I'm going 4,000-ish, plus or minus. If I track the car for a long weekend or two, I will change the oil sooner, maybe at 2,500 or 3,000 miles. Reason being, you're putting the car under a lot of stress. There's a lot more fouling that can happen, a lot more carbon buildup, a lot more stuff can go in there. So change the oil. This is the lifeblood of your car. If you take care of your oil and your oil filters and you do what you need to do, this car and engine should last anywhere between 150 to 200,000 miles, and I believe probably even longer if they're well cared for. So that's what they say. Alright, so here's the drain plug, and there are two O-rings. There's a small ring O-ring here, and there's a thicker O-ring here. You want to make sure those are both in good shape before you stick it back in. Mine are, so we're ready to go. Still dripping. It's been about a half hour, and there's still a tiny bit of that drip, so I'm going to wait a little more till that's pretty much bone dry. Alright, so I've already loosened up the oil filter. I'm going to go ahead and try to do this with one hand, and I don't know how well it's going to go, but we'll see how well this thing works to catch some of that oil. As many of you know, it can drip out and make a big mess. It's working out. You see it filling in there. Oh, it's working. Oh, it's making a big mess. Oh shit, here we go. Hold on. Alright. Oh, it's still going. Okay. Alright. It actually worked. It caught a lot of that oil, didn't make a big mess. I didn't have this pan underneath it, thinking I forgot how much was coming out of there, so that was why I said oh crap and put that down. But yeah, man, this thing actually worked really well. Amazon, I'll put a link in the description for that thing. Very, very helpful. I liked it. Good job. I don't know how hard this is going to be to get out, but it should be, here's another tip, 3/4 of a turn once it makes connection. Definitely want to clean up, make sure there's good contact. This looks really nice and clean here. Any extra oil or anything that's managed to leak in this area here, cleaned up. We're going to get this filter on. Make sure there's good content there. Alright. Once that makes it to where it's touching, which is right about there, you're going to want to turn it about 3/4 of the way. Now, I happen to have this handy dandy thing here, which works with a torque wrench so that I can get it and I can pretty much assume 3/4 of an inch, I'm sorry, 3/4 of a turn puts me right about there. Not too tight. Some people say a full turn, maybe I'll go a little past. That feels good. Don't need to be too tight. This needs to be very snug. You don't want to crush. Yeah, that feels good. You don't want to crush that rubber gasket that's in there. You want it to have good contact, firmly on. Now, here's the other tip for this drain plug. 18 pounds of torque. 18 foot-pounds of torque. So I've got my 15 millimeter socket. I've got my torque wrench set to 18 pounds. And we're going to torque this thing down right there. That's 18 pounds. Not more. Right there. Which really doesn't feel like too tight, but you want it tight enough, but not too tight. So there's 18 pounds. This is done. So we're going to lower the car. I'm going to clean up a few things under here. And then we're going to fill her with oil. Woohoo! Alright, car is down. Let's go ahead and open the tonneau by pushing the lock button once and then holding the convertible button. That puts it in service mode and gives me access to that. So, you should have a clean funnel. Put that in there as such and slowly begin to pour your 7.5 less whatever was in the filter quarts of Mobil 1 040 SuperCar with Dexos, whatever. Look at that golden color. How clean and nice that looks compared to the used oil. Alright, so comment below if you believe oil should be poured this way or if oil should be poured this way. I've seen people say either way is right. I'm curious what you think is right. Alright. Good to the last drop. Whoa, there's a little more in there. Oh my god. Good to the last drop. Psst, drops. Alright, save these cans. And a handy dandy microfiber towel to catch any drippage. Shake that little thing off. If you shake it more than 3 times, you're playing with it. Put back the oil cap. Make sure it's snug. Now, I'm going to fire up the car. I'm going to let it cycle for a little while, let it move some oil around in there before I button up this clear cover. Thanks, James White. And then I'm going to check the oil level and make sure we're good in that hash marked area. Also, look under the car and look for leaks, just in case something wasn't tight or something wasn't the way it should have been, even though I'm pretty sure and made sure twice that it was. Make sure there's no spots of oil under there. Let's fire it up. And no, I don't want to just cold start it. I actually want to just fire it up from the actual ignition internal. Alright, so when you're done trying to stay clean, I'm going to pour this back into these old or used oil containers, so I can transport them to the auto parts store to dispose of them properly. Alright, so to reset your oil life in here and on here, you're going to move over to maintenance. Engine oil, mine says 33. Click on that, reset. And when I say click on that, I'm talking about push on the wheel. Reset. Yes, I would. I'm at 100%. My trans fluid is at 76. Trans filter is 71. And I'm good to go. Alright, so tip number 12. You only paid for 10, but I'm giving you 12. 2 bonus ones. About the oil life, okay? It's not determined just by how many miles you have. The computer inside the C8 Corvette also takes into account the type of driving you do, how hard you're revving the engine, and takes that information, thanks, and it then determines your oil life. So it's not just on time, it's not just on the mileage, it's also about how you drive the car. So if you drive the car to and from the supermarket really easy, you don't rev it past 2,000 RPM, your oil life will probably last a whole lot longer. But if you rev the engine, if you launch the car, if you drive it very spirited and you rev it close to, if not at red line at some points, well, then the engine oil life may be a little bit shorter. The car will take that into account, and you can go by that, but me personally, I'm going by mileage, knowing how I drive the car. Well, that's it. So I hope this video helped you. I hope it gave you some good information. Sorry I got the flu. That made this thing take a lot longer in the editing process, so I wanted to get this part to you. That's it. Take care, stay well. Stay tuned for more. Like, share, subscribe, Joe's Garage. Woo-hoo-hoo!